one of my clients messages me and says, hey, I'm planning on doing a TEDx talk. I want you to name it. And I was like, I am not ready for that. But then we jam on that. And eventually it gets to the point where my identity is I'm Kev and I'm really good at naming stuff.
It's almost like the law of attraction, and I don't want to get woo-woo with this, but it's almost like you're holding the energy in advance, and then you're aligning the process to the goal versus like kind of stumbling upon results and then letting it leak into your identity.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode. It was episode number 1362, The Downside of Setting Boundaries. I guess there were multiple downsides in that episode. Today, for episode number 1363, the 3 big things that determine who you become. So at the end of the day, Alan has told me this many times, we set goals not to accomplish the goals, but in order to become the type of people who would be capable of accomplishing those goals. Who you become is far more important than what you get. Alan wanted to do this episode on the 3 things that determine who you become, so I'm going to kick it to one Alan Lazaros.
All right, so some people set a goal, and then once they achieve that goal, then they allow that to leak into who they are. Other people decide they're going to be a certain type of person and then align their goals with that. So I was in college, and this is 2009, I want to say. 2008? 2008, way back in the...
That's way back.
The day. 2008, and I'm in college, and there was a really famous website at the time called Stumbleupon. And everyone in my dorm, I had a big dorm, and everyone in my dorm had computers because I went to a tech school. So everyone's big into the internet, very techy, extremely, quote unquote nerdy people. Okay. So we all love video games. We all love technology. We all love the internet. We all love computers. Awesome. So everyone was using webcams and going on this website called Stumbleupon. Stumbleupon was a website where it's like kind of like webcam roulette, where you basically are on a website and it just shuffles through random parts of the globe, random people all over the world, and what they're doing on their webcam. And people would do funny stuff. And sometimes there was inappropriate stuff. So I'm pretty sure this website got shut down. But the point is that everyone was going through these webcams and doing funny stuff. And I thought it was a huge waste of time. But I think that's a lot of how we operate in life. I think that's the way a lot of people live their life. The friends that you're friends with are because, for me, for example, some of my best friends growing up, they were my next door neighbors. What a coincidence. Kevin and I know each other. We went to the same school. We grew up in the same town. What a coincidence, right? So some people, I think, go through life stumbling upon the person's, places, things, and ideas that then mold their identity. It molds into who they think they are. There's another way. And I didn't really understand this fully until after my car accident at 26. So the framework is simple, the 3 things. Here we go. Number 1 is identity. Identity is basically who you believe you are. That's it. Who you consciously, unconsciously, and subconsciously believe you are. All right. So Kevin believes he's a podcaster.
Son?
Right? Before he started podcasting, he did not believe that. Okay. Number 1, identity. Number 2 is process. That this is your experience. This is what you do and don't do. I think that's a better way to explain it. What you do and don't do. Okay. And then number 3 is your goal. Most people, New Year's resolutions, New Year's comes and it's like, okay, I'm going to set a New Year's resolution, aka a new goal, to lose 10 pounds this year. The problem is that goal requires a certain process and a certain identity underneath it in order to achieve it. And what if that conflicts with your unconscious belief about yourself? So one example that I want to give is I coach a lot of people, and a lot of them are doing social brands and they're building personal brands and they're building businesses, and that's awesome. what I find so fascinating is how few human beings are willing to post on their personal Facebook about their business.
Same.
Kev, human beings do not want to post on their personal Facebook about their business.
Yeah.
And here's why. The way people know them is very different than this new identity that they need to hold in order to be a business owner. Business owner is an identity. And they're so fearful of posting business stuff on a personal Facebook because, well, that's not how my aunt and my uncle and my friends from high school, that's not how they know me. And it's all fear. And so we trap ourselves. We want these goals, we want these results, but we can't achieve them without shifting our identity first. And it becomes this conundrum. Because if you want to be, I don't know, let's say one day you hope to be a millionaire. One day. Okay? It's totally possible. And there's no question that it's possible. Coach with me for a decade. There's no question I can make you a millionaire. Teach you how to do it. It's actually a simple formula. It just takes a really long time if you do it. Now, it's possible. It is possible for you, most likely, with very little exceptions. Okay? The question becomes, do you hold the identity in advance of a millionaire? Or are you stuck in your old identity of I'm broke? And this is what I was thinking about earlier, Kev, is comfort zone. I think that when you got the BMW, you were outside your comfort zone just in a positive way.
I still am.
Right. It's not, it hasn't fully leaked into your identity yet, unconsciously. Because you spent so much of your life struggling with money, it's a little weird for you to have so much abundance, to have access to so much capital. And again, within reason, obviously we're not.
Well, there's layers to that too, right? Because it's almost like I have a lot of the benefits of, I mean, the fact that I have that car is leaked into certain identities. I guess it's the whole identity, but there's layers to it of now, if anything, I'm a more quote unquote successful business owner, even though I'm the same level of successful I was before. But now it's almost like every skill I have, in a way, is kind of amplified. Like I don't know how to explain it. Yes, I'm outside of my comfort zone. Yes, it is leaked into some of my identity, but not all of it yet. It's very hard to explain. But again, I also don't know if I'm the...
Well, let's use someone else. So I told the story about the Prius with B, I think so, on the podcast.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay, so for those of you who didn't listen to that last episode, how dare you? I'm kidding.
I don't know which one it was, but I'm
essentially, sure. B and Emilia have a company called Evolve Ventures, and Emilia has a Prius that she's going to give to Bianca. Give is probably the wrong word, but have Bianca use, and the business is going to own the car, and Emilia is going to upgrade to a Tesla. B had a really hard time with her identity when it came to getting a Prius. Because unfortunately, we're all kind of, I don't know if here's what I think happens. I think you either decide in advance that I'm the type of person that, for example, I just watched a Tom Brady documentary, and he was like a last round draft pick, completely written off, and he went to the owner of the Patriots and said, "This is the best decision this franchise has ever made. I'm going to take Drew Bledsoe's job." He said that behind the scenes, and I'm going to be the best quarterback to ever live. He held the identity long before the result came. That's very rare, it turns out. That's like a very rare thing. And that's a very extreme example, But I do realize coaching people, some people do that. I would say that that's the way I operate. I decide in advance, this is who I am, and then I become that person, and then I get the result later. I think other people don't become the person until after they get the result. And I think that's why they're more process-oriented. And I'm still trying to figure this out myself. But so Kev does the process of podcasting, and you said 160 episodes before you felt like a podcaster?
Yeah, something like that.
And you use the word felt. The subconscious mind is where your emotions are. And I'm not going to go into the neuroscience, but essentially intellectually, Kevin knew for the first 160 episodes that you're a podcaster. Intellectually, you knew that. You podcast, you're a podcaster. Congratulations, right? But you didn't feel like a podcaster until 160 episodes in. I think that it doesn't leak into our subconscious very quickly. And somehow, I don't know how, me and Tom Brady or whatever, and other people are able to do that in advance. Like I already am a successful speaker, but I felt the same exact way now with us just getting a $5,000 speech as I did when I was broke and not getting any speeches. It's the same for me. And I don't know why yet.
This is because
I'm still trying to figure out.
You know the process?
I think that's part of it. I already know the process to do it. I'm certain that it's possible. I'm certain that I can do it. I also know that I'm a strong communicator. It's not like this is like, you're never going to hear me hold the identity of I'm going to be the strongest man to ever live. No. It's impossible. That's not even possible for me. So I can't hold that identity. So I'm trying to figure out if the people that do that are better at achievement. The people who don't do that are better at communication. That's what I've found. And I'm trying to be better at communication. So I have to like figure this whole thing out.
It's very interesting. I'm definitely I just have to do something for long enough. And then it becomes my identity.
This is going to sound weird, but I'm already married to Emilia in my consciousness.
I was too when I started. I told Taryn.
Okay, so that's for you too. Same deal.
Yeah. I didn't date you to date you. I dated you because we were getting married.
No, same. I like, this is my future wife. This is my baby, and I treat her like my wife. So even though she's not yet my wife, and I'm not presupposed, like if for whatever reason she wanted to say no or whatever, like one time I did an episode and my mom was like, "Oh, that sounded really bad." It's like, Mom, I intended to be with her. That doesn't mean without her consent.
Right, of course.
Right? Like obviously she has a choice in all this.
This is a good question that might help us go deeper. What's the difference between treating her like your wife and not treating her like your wife? Like, what's the difference?
That's an identity difference. You treat your wife with, I think, and this is unconscious, but it's human condition. I'm going to treat my wife better than some random person on the street. It's just unconscious. Now, of course, I'm going to treat some random person on the street with respect as well, but I'm not going to like invest my mind, body, heart, and soul into supporting them in every way a human can. That's the way that I treat Emilia. And what's interesting about this, and this is the really cool example here, here's the philosophical question. Would Emilia want to be my wife if I didn't treat her in advance like the amazing wife she is? Because if I hold myself to that standard in advance, then the results are inevitable. It's almost like the law of attraction, and I don't want to get woo-woo with this, but it's almost like you're holding the energy in advance, and then you're aligning the process to the goal versus like kind of stumbling upon results and then letting it leak into your identity. It's almost like you're deciding your own fate and your own destiny in a way. It's kind of amazing. I like love it.
It's very interesting.
My name is Nathan Schwarman. I'm from Lawrence, Kansas. I've been a client of Alan's for coming on 2 years now, and I really can't recommend his program enough. Alan's always there for me with great advice and holding me accountable every step of the way, and really leading by example. I've grown a lot in his program, but he's grown alongside with me, so I'd really recommend joining up on the program and joining the community.
Well, okay, what can the listeners do with this? Because obviously this is you and I going very deep on our own stuff, but I want to make sure that where do they start?
I think the first thing, your goal, it's a GPS. Your goal is the address you plug in. Okay? And it can be small or big. It can be a mile away or it can be 3,000 miles away. So I drove across the country in my early 20s. I can put an address in for what we did. We did Studio City in LA. Okay? So it can be a huge goal or it can be a tiny one. But you have to put in a goal. You have to put in an address. Otherwise the GPS doesn't work. Okay? Then you have to figure out where you are. If the GPS doesn't know your current location, it can't map the route, which is the process. So I think it really comes down to what the listeners need to do is pick a goal that will be meaningful to you. Any goal. And it has to be something that you really want and that is meaningful to you. It doesn't have to be meaningful to anyone else. It has to be meaningful to you. And hopefully it's in the service of others. I believe that's important. Otherwise, it won't be fulfilling. Okay. Then you have to say, who do I believe I am versus who do I need to believe I am in order to do the process? Mm. Then you have to dial in a process. And honestly, this is where people get trapped. The process requires them to do something that is outside of their current identity. And they don't want to do it because it's super painful. It's identity painful. It's ego level painful. What's a good example? You going from having a sports car to a 2014 Mazda, it messed with your identity. That's why you didn't want to do it. For me, it didn't mess with my identity. If anything, that's an upgrade from the Subaru. And I don't hold the identity of someone who drives a $100,000 car or a sports car. I don't care. I don't tie my self-esteem to that. Whereas I do think unconsciously and I do some of it. So I'm guilty of this too, just less, I think, in this context. Which is why I've freed myself, by the way. And I wasn't always this way. Before my car accident at 26, I want to make this clear. I was trapped in a cage of my own making. I was trapped in the identity of I'm the party guy. Everybody likes me. I have tons of friends. I am always there for my family. I all these identities, all these beliefs about myself. I'm super smart, but I'm not that funny. I'm good at math, science, technology, and engineering, but I'm not good at writing. Like I have all these identities, all these beliefs about self. And then when I got in that car accident, it shook my identity, and now I had a clean slate. The phoenix burnt down. Harry Potter reference, the fox burns down and then is reborn from the ashes. That is what that is. And that happened for you after suicidal ideation. And now you had a clean slate where you can reprogram. You can rebuild your identity from scratch. Maybe not fully from scratch, but you know what I'm saying. It's almost like you can reprogram the computer now. So for the listeners, the goals you want in life, if you haven't achieved them yet, it's most likely because the process that is necessary to achieve them is outside of alignment with your current identity. And I've noticed, brief story here, there was someone who's amazing, but so stuck. They had listened to 450 episodes of our podcast, and I came to Kevin afterwards and I said, our podcast is not good, man. It's alarming how stuck this person still is. Obviously, our podcast is not helping people get unstuck. What are we doing wrong here? Now I realize coaching and all that kind of stuff is more valuable in many ways. Yeah, coaching is more valuable than a podcast. That's a fact. It's more customizable. But this person couldn't even send a DM. They had 300,000 Instagram followers and they couldn't even send a DM. They were so stuck that they couldn't even send a DM to a single prospect. And I couldn't believe how uncomfortable they were, even with the idea of sending a DM to somebody. That's how trapped human beings can be. He was like shaking. It's like, brother, you can't have a successful business without prospecting. So whatever pain you've got under there, whatever shame, whatever trauma, we have got to work through that identity stuff. And the truth is his identity shrunk down to that's not the type of thing I do because I've been so hurt in the past. And it turns out that his past girlfriend, he messaged on Instagram, and then he had his heart broken in many ways, right? And so that pain, his body is still holding on to. No, do not Instagram. And he realizes in hindsight that girl valued his Instagram more than him, maybe in some ways. So he didn't want to show off the 300,000 followers because he didn't want any fake relationships. And I'm not saying that was a fully fake relationship or anything like that. But the point is that we get trapped in our own limiting identity. And the only way to break it is to kind of do something outside of who you believe you are. And that's why the Amy at the mall story is so powerful. Can you share that?
we have to do an episode on like the most common stories or something. You and I, we're gonna have to do that at some point. Amy D, OG Amy, she was on the team. Alan's first client. She was here for a long time. One of the OG, the originals. She was afraid to approach strangers. She was at school and she was afraid to go up to somebody and start a conversation. She felt like she was stuck on the outside of conversations all the time. So she reached out to me and said, "Hey, what do I do about this?" So Amy and I went to the mall, and long story short, I had her approach people and start conversations. Quite literally, to Alan's point, the direct opposite of what her identity was. I am not the type of person that it starts conversations. I am the type of person who is shy. I am the type of person who avoids deep conversations, whatever it may be. And then she ended up starting to reshape her identity after that. But it was just a simple, this is who you've convinced yourself you are. This is who you need to become in order to get the result you want. Come do that with me. And then that built a lot of momentum for her. You know what's interesting? I was, who was I talking to recently? I was talking to somebody recently. Oh, 2 clients. I actually have calls with them today. And they said, we want to rename our podcast. And I was like, I got you. Like, that's my jam. It's like my specialty. I'm really good at that. I didn't start there, though. I didn't start having the identity of I am really good at naming things. I didn't start there. Here's what happens. At this point, I have titled 1,300 and you've definitely titled some. So I'll just say 1,300 podcast episodes.
The ones with less listens.
Yeah, we'll give you 60. We'll give you 64 of them, 65 of them. And as I continued, there would be some sort of feedback. Like I would say a title and I would be like, oh, that's a good one. Or somebody would say, that was a really good title. Then I started coaching people. And I would go to somebody and say, what do you want your podcast to be named? And they'd say, I have no idea. And I'd say, all right, give me an idea of like, what's the show going to be about? And then I would just start throwing things at them. And people would say, wow, you're really good at this. And I'd say, no. I've just done it. I've done it a bunch of times. That happens. One of my clients messages me and says, hey, I'm planning on doing a TEDx talk. I want you to name it. And I was like, I am not ready for that. But then we jam on that. And eventually it gets to the point where my identity is I'm Kev and I'm really good at naming stuff.
What would you recommend now, though? Because the way that I would have done that process is I'd say I'm the naming guy. And then I would just go get good at naming it.
I don't know how to get... For me, it wasn't... I don't know.
Because in a way, you stumbled upon being good at this.
Well, did I stumble upon it or did I have to be good at this? I didn't know.
I think you had to be good at it. You uncovered it. And then you self-assigned it eventually. The problem is you weren't self-assigning before. And I'll go briefly about this, and maybe this is another episode. I don't know, at some point. There's someone that I coach who is amazing. But she has this very small identity of I'm not amazing. And it's like alarming to me because it's like, she's like, well, I'm just very ordinary. And I'm like, no, you're not. Like, no, you're not. Statistically, no, you're not. That's not true. It's inaccurate. But our mind messes with us, right? And so I can name 10 things that are extraordinary. AKA, what does ordinary mean? Above average. Ordinary means average. Extraordinary means above average. So I can name 10 things right now that you're above average in. And she's like, I'm like, do you not self-assign that? She's like, no, I don't think I do. Here's what I figured out. And I hope this is a breakthrough for our listeners.
Can you just define self-assign?
Yeah. So self-assign means I'm going to be a successful podcaster. And then when you become a successful podcaster, you go, I did that. You self-assign it in your own
Take
head.
ownership for results.
You take ownership for it. Yeah. Like I bought this laptop. I got good at communicating even though I sucked at it. Like that was me who decided to do that and then went and did what it took to do it. And then when I become stronger at communication, I self-assign it, which is how I built belief. And that's tied into identity. So, because identity is just belief about self. So this person, she said, I think what I'm doing, this was a really cool moment. I think I'm afraid to own it because then once I own it, if it gets criticized, it's criticizing me. In other words, and I'll go brief about this, but Kev, like, I remember thinking to myself, like, you listen to some of these podcasts, right? It's like, well, Kev, don't tie your self-worth, don't tie your identity to your relationship. Don't tie it to your car either. Also, don't tie it to your fitness. Honestly, you shouldn't really tie it to your house. And don't tie it to your career. Don't tie it to your family. Like, don't tie your identity to, like, whether or not you're in shape. Don't tie your identity to how much you know or your intelligence. Don't tie your identity. And it's like, wait a minute. Whoa. What should I tie my identity to? Like, you're supposed to build self-esteem through merit, through actual achievement. You can't just now, I understand what they're trying to say. What they're actually trying to say with that is don't tie your identity to any one thing, because then it traps you. If you tie your identity entirely to that BMW and then you lose the BMW, who are you? Right? But you should tie your identity to everything. Your health, your wealth, and your love. How I treat Emilia is part of my identity. 100%. I am a wonderful partner. And I'll be brief about this, but I said to Emilia before we lived together, I said, I'll be the best roommate you've ever had. And she's like, I'm scared. I'm like, I understand why. I mean, you've lived with guys before and it was probably not good. Like, living with guys, for our listeners, probably, you went to college, you saw the college apartments. I mean, dude, female dorms versus male dorms, very different in terms of cleanliness.
I haven't been to many, but I can imagine.
Yeah. So anyways, in college, she had seen how men live. And granted, it's college, but the point is she was afraid to live with a guy. I said, sweetheart, I've lived with a partner before. It's the best. Like, it's going to be amazing. Don't worry. I'll be the best roommate you've ever had. That was my identity. I know I'm cleanly. I know I'm organized. I know I'm respectful. I know that I'm going to protect her time. I'm going to protect her sleep. I know. But that's also because I believe in myself. That's also because I have those capabilities and I've developed them over years. Whereas I wouldn't say I can fix your car. I don't know how to fix her car. So I think that to bring this all home, we don't want to self-assign results to us because we're afraid that if the results get criticized, then what does that mean about me? So I just posted a blog today. It's my blog. I decided to write it. I wrote it. And whether it's successful or a failure, that's on me. That's on me. People want to avoid feeling like failures. What they're also avoiding is building belief. Because if you don't take ownership for it, it wasn't you. And this is all unconscious. It's just a protection mechanism.
So the 3, identity, process, goals. Identity, your identity, the process, and the goal. Those are the 3 big things that determine who you are.
And if anyone wants help aligning those, reach out. That is literally what my coaching is. Most people have goals that are just outside of alignment with what they're willing to do and their identity.
Alan mentioned if you understand the fundamentals of anything, really, if you understand the fundamentals and you do them long enough, you will achieve some level of result, maybe and oftentimes beyond what you believed was possible. Last night in group coaching, we did our How to Level Up Your Money session. I think session 5, right? And we talked a lot about the fundamentals of money. It's way more simple than you think. Don't make it as complicated as you think. If something like that resonates with you, our next group coaching starts July 11th, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, at the end of the day, what you know, your awareness, what you're practicing every single day, that is going to determine the results you have. So in group coaching, we're focused on helping you raise your awareness of what you need to be doing, but also the awareness of who you are as a human being, and then helping you stay accountable. So if you're interested, check the link in the show notes. Please reach out. We have a discount code for listeners of NLU. It ends up being less than $97 a month, something like that.
96.
96.
Yeah. 96. Kevin and I, as you know, grew up without fathers, and we wanted to give back. We started the Next Level Hope Foundation to give back to children of single parents, and we host 2 events a year. One is Father's Day, and one is during the holidays. The Father's Day one is coming up June 18th, so we are currently 11 days out. Click the link in the show notes. You can contribute from anywhere in the world. I think we're almost at goal. I think we're over halfway there, and if you are local, you can potentially get involved as well. So email me, alan@nextleveluniverse.com. Click the link in the show notes. Please check out the landing page, check out the kids, see what's going on. It's a very, very fun event, and we've got sports and food and activities. And the there's some kids that are like literally looking forward to this all year. So it's really cool.
We get to play like kids, which is always fun. We
Knockout
don't often, so but when
basketball.
we do. Tomorrow for episode number 1364, a very simple fundamental that you may need to be reminded of. Self-care isn't selfish. Alan and I have been talking about boundaries, and we've been talking about sticking up for yourself and protecting your time. So I think that is a very timely episode. As always, we love you, appreciate you, grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we do not have fans, we have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Keep shaping your identity and aligning them with your goals and your process. Next Level Nation.